Good evening, hello and welcome to Debrief. In the December of 1952, the City of London was trapped in a deadly cloud of smog and pollution for 5 days. London's toxic air, with sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, heavy smoke particles mounted and ended up choking and killing as many as 12,000 people to death. Over the years, the City of London took various steps, including targeted legislations, cutting down local sources of pollution, ensuring that the deadly smog is never back to the city. Cut to Delhi in 2021. Currently, it's the world's most polluted capital. A cursory look at the court orders, state and centre policies will tell you that the governments and the judiciary is very worried and doing a lot. But on the ground, it has proven to be very tricky for real implementation of these policies. The centre-state politics makes the situation far worse. Over the years, whether it's the odd-even formula of the Delhi government or banning of trucks in the national capital during the winter months by the Supreme Court or setting up a specialized body to monitor pollution, they have proven to be mere knee-jerk reaction to a very long-term problem. The key question we ask is, will this year be any different for Delhi and for the north of the country? We elucidate in the next 30 minutes. Our first report. The national capital of Delhi is the world's most polluted capital for the third straight year in 2020. According to IQ Air, a Swiss group that measures air quality levels based on the concentration of lung-damaging airborne particles known as PM2.5. Despite many attempts by courts, government, the problem continues to persist. Stubble burning has been touted as a key reason for this pollution that we witnessed during the winter months. Do the farmers have any real alternatives to stubble burning? Here is a special report.
The national capital literally gasps for breath every year. A toxic haze takes over the city and our lives each year during winter. As Delhi retains the infamous title of being the world's most polluted capital, each year more than 2.5 crore people living in Delhi breathe toxic haze that takes a toll on their health. A slew of measures, a graded action plan prepared under the watch of the Supreme Court, exists on paper, but the implementation has proved to be very tricky, difficult and slow. Stubble burning is touted as a key cause of pollution in the national capital and the entire North India. No real solution seems to be in sight.
मजबूरी में जड़ावा है जब किसान को कुछ मिल नहीं रहा है, खेत में इतना नुकसान हो रहा है, किसान अपनी मनमर्जी चला रहा है ना, किसान की तो इतनी हमदर्दी करते नहीं। आक भी प्रदूषण क्यों फैलावेंगे, अपने डंगरां चरावेंगे, अपना काम लावेंगे। इसने
हमारी हरियाणा सरकार ने पराली के बारे में ना तो किसान को सुविधा दी है, ना कुछ जानकारी दी है। जिला लेवल पर ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में तो आ ही नहीं रही को, जिला लेवल पर भी ना तो को जिले में कृषि विज्ञान अनुसंधान केंद्र में ना कोई मशीन है, ना कोई ऐसा केमिकल है जो पराल को खत्म कर दे या खाद के रूप में प्रयोग कर सके।
Farmers have very limited options when it comes to disposing stubble. After stringent measures like fine on stubble burning were imposed, the Delhi government also suggested certain alternatives, but it's far from reaching all farmers, especially in Punjab. The political blame game, as always, continues.
As the politics continues between different state governments, the people of Delhi and the farmers have been left in a complete limbo. It remains to be seen if these governments can finally put politics aside and find an amicable solution to this problem, so that the people of Delhi can finally breathe a sigh of relief in fresh air.
The most dangerous in the toxic haze of Delhi is PM2.5 that is known to severely damage lungs. PM2.5 refers to the ambient airborne particles of size 2.5 micrometers. This particle is emitted from various sources and is linked to negative health effects such as cardiovascular disease, respiratory illness and premature mortality. It is estimated that as much as 20 to 40% of Delhi's air pollution originates from Punjab's farm fires. During the peak burning season, Delhi exceeds the WHO's annual exposure guideline by more than 14 times. Global studies and the experience of many cities across the world that have successfully tackled the issue of air pollution shows that it's the long-term approach that helps. Political quibbling or blame game will just lead to a political limbo, where men, women and children will continue to breathe this toxic haze. With Anshul Singh and Nikhil Lakhwani, Bureau Report, CNN News 18.
So you saw that report, and especially in the national capital, the problem is very, very huge. It's a grave issue, keeping in mind the health concerns that were pointed out. Let's take you through the key problems, what contributes to this pollution that you witness in the national capital region. 10% of is residential, 4% is agricultural burning, 17% is dust in construction, 30% is industry, 28% is transport, 11% in others. Let's talk about them one by one. Dust in construction, usually in the peak winter months, there is an SOP in place of the Delhi government and also in coordination with the central authorities, and often the construction activities are halted because the dust concentration that becomes very high during the winter months. Industry, a lot of industry which emit a lot of gases which may not be good for the climate, those industries are shut down during the peak winter months. Transport is about 28%. Vehicular movement has been touted as one of the key reasons that contributes to this pollution, and odd even scheme and various other schemes of the Delhi government point out to this. Agriculture burning may just show here as 4%, but what happens is that this is concentrated. It comes in a tranche, and what happens is that when the winter onset is beginning, the air is literally getting heavier. These few days, 1 or 2 weeks, become very, very difficult to cope. And of course, the other activities as well contribute to this. Not to forget that this is the festive season and it becomes all the more problematic. PM10, that is another huge particle. It can directly pierce into your lung, also known as one of the causes of lung cancer and the prevalence of lung cancer in cities like Delhi. Now, if you look at this breakup that you contribute, 25% dust in construction, 27% industry, 9% residential, 4% agriculture burning, 10% others, 24% transport. So the key contributors are these three: transport, dust in construction, industry. These two, 27 and 25, industry and dust in construction, you can halt it for a while, but the transport becomes very difficult to catch up to, and that is why in the spell of 3 to 4 months, it is very, very difficult to contain this entire activity which usually goes on unabated in the national capital region. And all the statistics that we are presenting here, this is from a Terry report of 2018, and of course subsequent studies have also been done to point this out. Let's tell you more about what really contributes. We have told you this, 5 reasons why Delhi choke. Rapid urbanization and unchecked expansion of the city, the less number of trees, no planned urban activity, illegal constructions coming up, construction activity goes on unabated. Always there is a road or a highway in construction in the national capital region, and that is one of the key reasons. The next one. It is also the exponential increase in the number of vehicles in Delhi roads. More than 1 crore vehicles on the road of Delhi. Delhi is one of the cities which has one of the highest number of private vehicles compared to the rest of the country. So vehicular movement is a huge, huge issue. The contribution is very high. The third one. Burning of biomass, crop residue in the neighboring states of Punjab and Haryana, parali, or what you call stubble burning. It's a huge issue. Farmers don't really have real alternative to stubble burning. Many experiments have been done, partly successful, but there is no quick alternative that the farmers have. And even today, the stubble burning in many parts has already started. The next one. Increase in pollutants in the aftermath of Dussehra and Diwali. Well, the ban on firecrackers, we know that happens each year. Even during the Dussehra, you see that, there's often the effigy of Ravan which would be burned, firecrackers which are used, people travel more. Festive season is a lot of activity which also contributes into pollution. Festive season is not the sole or the main, but one of the key reasons why you witness a lot of pollution during these winter months in the festive season. The last one, the last point that we present for you. Winter months don't favor dispersion from air pollutants. Usually, when it's summer, the heavy particles literally settle down. That's also one of the natural causes how winters really work. What happens in a city like Delhi is, with the industrial activity, vehicular movement, the pollution coming in from Punjab, Haryana, and I must reiterate that if you look at that map that really comes out, it's the entire north of the country. Western UP, Rajasthan, Delhi, many parts of the north of the country are affected. And if you look at the top 20 most polluted cities across the world, a lot of cities from the north of our country feature on that infamous list. So we told you about these 5 key reasons which are responsible for why you witness such heavy levels of pollution in the national capital region. What are those key reasons? What contributes? And most of these reasons, as we scroll through them, as we talk about them, they'll tell you that what you require is a long-term policy approach and not knee-jerk reactions that come often from the government. To tell us more about this, we are joined by Dr. Anjal Prakash. He's the head of research and director, also the adjunct associate professor at the Bharati Institute of Public Policy at the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Dr. Prakash, it's a pleasure to have you with us on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you, and all of us want to know this, do you anticipate this winter to be any different, or once again Delhi and the entire north of the country will choke?
Thanks so much, Anusha. And I'm sorry to say this, that this winter will not be any different from the winters in the past in Delhi and also the other areas in the North India, because the measures that we have taken, unfortunately, has never bear any fruit, in the sense that these measures have always been a knee-jerk solutions, trying to find out as the season approaches, and then we don't have a long-term policy. And so unfortunately, the situation will remain more or less same, I would say, or increase, because the lockdown is also lifted in many parts of the world, and including India and in Delhi. So that is one reason that things going to be much more worse in future. That is what I look like to me.
Dr. Prakash, why have we taken knee-jerk reactions? Why can't we have a policy-centric approach? Why can't there be a political consensus around this? As an expert on policy, what are the reasons that we have faltered and not taken the long-term approach on this one?
Yeah, so I'll focus on the issue of the especially the issue of stubble burning. Sure. We have been doing research on, and what we found is a couple of things. One is that there's a lack of incentive for farmers for not burning the stubble, and it also doesn't provide economic value for the crop residue. The stubble can be converted into fodder or an organic fertilizer or fuel, but the government should also subsidize or incentivize the industry that are engaged in converting stubble into economically viable products. And that has unfortunately not happened. See, we need a lot of innovativeness and also a kind of a new information that is coming in that has to convert into policy for framework. So that has not happened. Second is the effort should be also made to improve to combine the harvester that farmers use to harvest crop. The current machine and the used leaves that are behind the huge residue, that leads to kind of an improvement that should be made into the technology that has been used so far, and the machine has been employed in many parts, but it has not taken much much leap forward for us. The third part is also looking at how we look at the from the farmers' perspective. They also have a difficult time because the stubble burning which happens because of the short period of time when when you have to harvest a crop and then sow a second crop, and that's the place where we need to have much more innovation. I'd like to focus on just one more point. Sure. Is there has been some innovation, especially to set up rice bioparks where farmers could convert stubble into products. These are the long-term solution that that will free up Delhi's air, and that has not happened in the recent past, unfortunately.
Dr. Prakash, thank you so much for elaborating on that point, because there's so much politics around stubble burning. But Dr. Prakash is telling us about the long-term efforts that could have been taken, and how by providing alternatives to the farmers, this huge contributor to the Delhi's pollution and to the north of the country, the problem of stubble burning could have been tackled. And it's not just Delhi that chokes, but the entire north of India. It's literally a slow death for everyone who breathes the toxic air of Delhi. Children are the most adversely affected, sometimes with permanent damage to their lungs. They say that smoking is injurious to health. Very true, but during the peak pollution times, breathing in Delhi is like smoking 44 cigarettes in a single day. What does it mean to live and breathe that toxic haze each year? Natasha tells you the story.
(999). That's the air quality reported in India's capital at the peak of smog season. For reference, anything above 300 AQI is hazardous to your lungs. Also, 999 isn't the actual AQI level. It's just that most meters aren't built with a range beyond that. 999 AQI. It's equivalent to smoking 44 cigarettes. It's a slow death for people breathing in this air. Nearly 1/3 of deaths in India can be attributed to air pollution. That means 2.5 million people die every year of pollution. The temporary effects of air pollution are illnesses like pneumonia and bronchitis and irritation of the nose, throat and eyes. Air pollution can also cause breathlessness, nausea, headache and dizziness. It's also capable of permanent damage. These include heart disease, lung cancer and respiratory diseases such as emphysema. Air pollution can cause long-term damage to people's nerves, brain, kidneys, liver and other organs. Some scientists suspect air pollutants can cause birth defects. Young children and older adults whose immune systems tend to be weaker are often more sensitive to pollution. Since children are still growing, air pollution is lethal during their developmental stage. It can hinder lung growth, inhibit brain development, and increase the risk of conditions such as asthma. A study found that compared with adults, children walking on busy roads may be exposed to up to 1/3 more air pollution. Air pollution is an epidemic in itself. Add a pandemic to that and it spells disaster. Exposure to air pollution increases risk of respiratory diseases. That will increase susceptibility to COVID-19, which is also a respiratory illness. So it is likely that we'll see a spike in COVID cases during the upcoming smog season.
Well, I think for COVID-19, WHO has repeated many times what are the measures we need to take. But in the case of air pollution, the most important recommendation we can say is that in those countries where the levels of air pollution are very high, we need to enforce legislation to reduce those levels of air pollution.
If climate models are to be believed, then humanity is past the point of no return. But that shouldn't stop us from acting. We need to switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy immediately. Humanity is responsible for its own doom. Natasha Menden for CNN News 18.
Slipping into a very short break. Welcome back. Even on an issue like air pollution, how can politics be left behind? The blame game between the state and the centre, with repeated interventions from the Supreme Court, various high courts or the National Green Tribunal. Should there be some key policy initiatives beyond this political bickering? Is that possible? My colleague Ritangshu with this report.
This is the national capital in September. And this is the national capital just 2 months later in November. Unbelievable, isn't it? How the most advanced city in the country gets reduced to a gas chamber every year in just a matter of days. Fighting Delhi's air pollution has been among Chief Minister Kejriwal's biggest challenges ever since he took charge. One of his first countermeasures was the controversial odd-even rule, first brought about in 2016. It certainly helped ease Delhi's traffic woes, but its impact on air pollution remained doubtful, which is why the plan did not see a lot of encores. The NGT and the Supreme Court too have stepped in recent times. The bursting of crackers during the festive season have been banned or severely restricted in the National Capital Region for several years now. But once again, the efficacy of this ban remains debatable, with several shows of defiance often seen in Delhi on Diwali. Last year, the centre came up with perhaps the most drastic step taken yet, an ordinance which dissolved the EPCA and set up an all-powerful commission to manage air quality in the region. The panel was empowered to punish violators with up to a fine of ₹1 crore and a jail term of up to 5 years. More than a month after the commission came into effect though, the Supreme Court tightened the screws further, with the then CJI remarking that the bench was not satisfied with the work done so far. For its part, the Aam Aadmi Party government, like last year, has come up with what it calls a 10-point game plan to check pollution. But Kejriwal wants to make it clear that his hands are tied beyond a point. The past month has seen the Delhi Chief Minister tweeting almost daily about the positive air quality in the capital, warning of smoggy days incoming due to stubble burning in other states.
पिछले 3-4 दिन से पोल्यूशन बढ़ने लगा है क्योंकि आसपास के राज्यों के अंदर वहाँ की राज्य सरकारों ने अपने किसानों की मदद नहीं की, इसीलिए किसान ना चाहते हुए भी अपनी अपनी पराली जलाने के लिए मजबूर है। दिल्ली का ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा कोशिश करें कि पोल्यूशन कम कर लें ताकि हमारी सेहत ठीक ठाक रहे।
His neighboring CMs dismissed the charge of stubble burning causing Delhi's smoggy skies, asking Kejriwal to clean up his own city.
केवल ये विषय को कई बार फेंकना होता है इसलिए फेंका जाता है। हरियाणा में मैं आपको बताऊं कि कोई पराली जलने का घटना इस समय नहीं हो रही है क्योंकि अब पराली बिकने लग गई है और 1000 रुपया एकड़ हम सब्सिडी देते हैं बेलिंग करने के लिए।
But politics is hampering the fight against pollution. One of the key demands of the farmers protesting over the past 1 year is to remove the hefty penalty on burning parali. And with elections fast approaching in Punjab, no political party wants to alienate them. Ritangshu Bhattacharya for CNN News 18.
Well, air pollution is a serious issue which is directly linked to the larger concerns around climate change across the world. Climate change demands that severe air pollution should be tackled with. It further demands that human race should shift to cleaner technology and towards more sustainable ways of development and living. Here's hoping India catches up on that front. With that, it's a wrap. Thank you for watching.